Alright, so today we're going to be talking interesting card interactions that are good to know about when playing Final Fantasy Limited. So, some of these are going to be 2-card combos, some of these are going to be kind of unintuitive things that you might not think of. Some of these are going to be simple, but just like good reminders, especially in-game. There might be a weird ruling on a card you don't know about, or a specific wording that's a little bit unintuitive. We're going to start with an easy one, and the easy one is just talking about the legendary creatures that transform. So when you have a legendary creature, what determines is this a thing that's going to be affected by the legend rule? Like, will I only be able to keep one in play? Is the actual name of the card. So what that means is if you have an Emperor of Palamecia, and you flip it to the backside, Lord, Master of Hell, and then later you draw another Emperor, well, you can still play that second Emperor. You're not going to legend roll yourself. So, this goes for any of these flip legends, and especially happens quite a bit in this set because a lot of these are uncommons, right? You do tend to get multiple copies of the Emperor in some drafts sometimes. The second one here is a really weird one, and super weird if this just happens to you in game and you're like, wait, what happened? This is between Kina Ku Gourmet, which is the 3-mana 2/3 that says if you were to make one or more tokens, you make that many plus a 1/1 frog token, and the Adventureland Xanarkand. So Xanarkand says 6 mana, make a 1/1 colorless hero creature token, put a +1/+1 counter on it for each land you control. I don't actually know the exact ruling, the mechanisms for this ruling and why this happens, but I do know what happens here is the frog you make will also get the counters that you would put on your Xanarkand land. Kind of strange. So if you've got Queen on the battlefield, you cast this for, 6 mana, 5 counters on your 1/1 hero, also 5 counters go on that frog too. So kind of a cool interaction, and yeah, if somebody wants to drop in the comments the exact mechanisms, because I don't remember offhand, that would be great. That'd be very helpful. Next up is just a little bit of a timing thing with melding. So, the only meld creature in the set, Vanil and Fang. And the thing you have to keep in mind here if your opponent has these cards is there's no real way to blow this out. So what I mean is, let's say they play Fang on 3, and then they play Vanilla on 4. On some future turn, they're going to set up, they have 5 mana in play that they get to untap with. You can't actually respond to them melding, right? So because this is all one thing, it just says at the beginning of your main phase, if you own and control Vanilla and Fang, you can pay 5 mana, and if you do flip them, this is all one ability. So the trigger is going to go on the stack, and if you want them to not flip these, not meld them, you actually have to kill one before they start paying. Because if you just say, okay, that trigger happens, they pay, it flips. Yeah, that just might be too late. You don't really want to destroy Ragnarok because they get value out of that. Next up is a kind of unintuitive thing with the Darkness Crystal. So the Darkness Crystal, I think the most playable of all the crystals. These aren't phenomenal cards, but I put the Darkness Crystal in a deck or two. So the thing to keep in mind here is the replacement effect here. So Darkness Crystal says, if a non-token creature in opponent control would die, instead exile it and gain 2 life. So this is a replacement effect, which means if something would happen, something else happens instead. And when you have different replacement effects, 2 competing replacement effects, the rule to determine what replacement effect you actually use is whoever's permanent it is that's going to be affected by this replacement effect, they get to choose. So that has some kind of unintended consequences when you have cards like Suplex in your deck, right? So Suplex says deal 3 to something, and if that creature would die this turn, exile instead. So if you're trying to set up a turn where you're like, okay, I can kill their creature with Suplex, I'll gain 2 life, and I get to put that thing under the crystal and cast it later, won't actually work as long as your opponent chooses the right thing. So what's going to happen is you cast Suplex, and now Suplex makes a replacement effect, right? If the creature would die, exile it instead. But Darkness Crystal also has a replacement effect. And because your opponent is the one who gets to say, hey, I get to choose what replacement effect applies, they're of course going to choose Suplex, meaning not only are you not going to be able to put it under the Darkness Crystal, you can't get that creature back later, but you also won't gain 2 life. So just factor that in. Also, because your opponent's creatures are getting exiled, I've had this come up pretty recently, side quest Hunt the Mark will not make treasures, right, with the Darkness Crystal in play. So, slight nombo there. So yeah, just watch out for that. There might be a certain play where you need all your mana, and you're like, okay, I'm going to make a treasure in a turn, casting on their turn, and yeah, the Darkness Crystal negates that. Next up, the card Shambling Seath has some interesting timing things going on with it. So this is the 3-mana 3/3, enters tapped, and when you cast a non-creature, you can pay black to return it from your graveyard to your hand. So if you have anything that puts the Shambling Seath into the graveyard as a cost, like a non-creature that puts into the graveyard as a cost, you can trigger it off of that non-creature itself, right? So, for example, let's say you cast Laughing Mad, you put the Seath in the graveyard, right? The Seath will be in the graveyard as you pay the cost to cast the spell. You then finish casting Laughing Mad, and because the Seath is in the graveyard, it's actually going to trigger. So if you have the mana to pay, you can discard your Seath to Laughing Mad and get it back immediately. Same goes for Vane's Treachery, if you sacrifice the Seath as a cost to get the -6/-6 here. If you've got 3 mana lying around, 2 of it being black, you can sack the Seath and bring it back all in one fell swoop. Next, we have some creature types mattering on rares. So this is one that, yeah, you might have heard of or you might have seen him play. It's something that comes up quite often. But Summon Leviathan, saying, return each creature that isn't a Kraken, Leviathan, Merfolk, or Octopus, or Serpent to its owner's hand. And, the 2 cards that really matters for in this set are Sahagin and Ultros. They're Octopus and Merfolk. And, this matters for both sides, right? A lot of the time I'll go, okay, well, it would look pretty good to summon Leviathan here if my opponent didn't have an Ultros in play, so I'm going to do some other play. Or, it's just a good deck building thing to be like, well, when I've got summon Leviathan in my deck, I want to take Sahagin and Ultros even higher than I might usually. So, yeah, that's one that is pretty common. You see quite often here and there. But one that I don't hear talked about as much is Dion. And this might be because, Dion is just excellent and has a lot going on with it. You don't need too much to make Dion good. But it does say knights you control have flying on your turn, right? Kind of easy to shortcut this just to Dion and the 2/2. But there's actually a lot of knights, specifically in black-white. And a lot of these actually very much benefit from gaining flying. So, the top of the bunch here, if you can really get this combo going off, you've got Summon Primal Odin. And giving this flying when it has that second line of when this deals combat damage, the opponent loses the game. Obviously, that's fantastic. But even stuff like Adalbert Steiner, right? This is also a knight, giving your lifelink creature flying. Or Judge, Magister Gaberith, creature that gets gigantic, giving that flying is awesome. Paladin's Arms is kind of interesting because this makes the creature a knight. So not only will you be able to just, send your 3/2 to the air if you go arms into Dion, but later in the game, maybe you equip something bigger if Dion is still around and the game isn't over. Same goes with Dark Knight's Greatsword. This also makes the creature into a knight. And then we got 2 black-white rares that are also knights that it's really nice to give flying to. So giving Cecil either the front mode to get it in a few times, be able to flip it, or just turning your lifelink creature into a flying creature. That's fantastic. Also Squall, the creature that says whenever you attack alone, that creature gains double strike, and when this hits, you get to reanimate a creature. So yeah, another great thing to get flying. There's a few other rares in this set that, this is something you want to keep an eye on. So there's Min Wu, which is the 5 mana 3/3 lifelink that whenever you gain life, you put a 1/1 counter on all your clerics, right? There's a random clerics running around. The White Mage's Staff, that is a cleric and also gains life. There's also Gilgamesh, the 6 mana red creature that cares about equipment. So that one says you can attach the equipment to a samurai you control. Not a ton of samurai in the set, but Samurai's Katana turns things into samurais, so there's something to keep an eye on there. So yeah, just keep your eye out for any of these creature types mattering. It can be very easy to overlook these as kind of like flavor text or commander text or whatever, but I do find it comes up once in a while. Next up is a non-bow, some cards that don't play very well together. So we've got White Orosite and Ultima. And the level 1 here, of course, is, okay, these cards don't play very well together because you cast your White Orosite at some point. Later on, you draw your Ultima. Ultima says, destroy all artifacts and creatures, and that's not good because they're going to get their creature back from under the White Orosite. Now, the level 2, you might be thinking, oh, wait a second. Ultima says end the turn, so maybe they don't get their creature back. They still do, though. Because what end the turn does is it takes triggers off the stack, right? That get put on the stack. So there's death triggers or something. Ultima will take those off the stack. But when White Orosite leaves the battlefield, it doesn't actually make a trigger. This is a duration effect. So it says, I do a thing as long as I'm here. And because there's not really an interaction there, right? There's no trigger to end, they will get their creature back still. So yeah, the level 1 thinking is correct here. These cards still do not play very well together. Next up, we have a cool interaction though. This is Stiltskin Moogle Merchant plus Zidane. So Stiltskin says you can pay 2 mana to give your opponent a permanent and you draw a card. And Zidane steals one of your opponent's permanents for the turn and also says whenever an opponent gains control of a permanent you control, you create a treasure token. So this is just basically, with these 2 cards, it's 2 mana, draw a card each turn. Because what you do is as long as you have one thing to give the opponent, Stiltskin gives it away. Great. You make a treasure. And then you can just keep on giving that same treasure away. You donate it, you make a new treasure. You donate, make a new treasure. So nice little draw engine there. It's something to keep in mind. And then the last one, it's not anything fancy, not anything special, but I just wanted to call it out because it's a recent rules update with a card like Fire Magic. So with the blocking rules change that happened a few months back, where when you attack and the opponent multi-blocks with a few things, you now get to decide how you would like to divide your damage any way you like. Right? You don't have to kill one creature before you deal damage to the next one. You can just say, like, they block with 4 creatures, I'll just deal 1 damage to each of those with my 4/4. Before, it was the case where you'd have to kill one thing and then kill the next and, get through all the creatures in order. Fire Magic is the exact kind of card. This kind of like deal 1 damage or deal 2 damage to the board, where this new blocking rule really kind of feels a little bit different because, you have a giant creature. You've got like a 7/7. And your opponent puts all their stuff in front of them. They've got like 5 smallish creatures, maybe even more than that. Well, before it was kind of just like, okay, well, I killed your best things. But now what you might want to do is spread the damage out. A lot of those are 3/3s, let's say, 2/2s and 3/3s. You're not just going to kill their best 2 things. You could actually line it up where you do like 2 and 1 and 2 and 1, 2 and 1, and then Fire Magic and just wipe the whole board. Right? So because you can decide how to spread that damage out, you might go do non-lethal damage to all the blockers, and then post-combat, you cast Fire Magic, clear the opponent's board. Anyways, that's going to do it. Just a short little video here for interactions that I have run into. And please let me know if there's any kind of weird or unintuitive interaction that you've run into. Let us know in the comments, and I would love to hear those. All right, see you around, everybody.